Good morning, everyone. Welcome on this Monday morning to Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Lenny, your timing was impeccable as you ended right at 10 o'clock, and here we go. We got a few minutes of some follow-up to that. Lenny does such a great job, and, the toughest part of what I do is following him. But, hey, somebody's got to do it, and it might as well be me. So we're going to talk just a moment about what's going on in Cleveland, shall we? And we know that Plesac and Clevenger were sent down to the farm due to their, choices that they made in terms of not only just going out and putting themselves in a situation where they're not following the rules, but then to not be forthcoming about it. And I think the fact of not being forthcoming about it is what's really got their Indian teammates all out of sorts. Putko said he would not play if the two came back. So they have to stay down now for 10 days from the time they were sent down. And here's something that I want to talk about this morning, and chat room and on StreamYard, give me some feedback on this. But Cleveland in the last 2 years, they've traded Trevor Bauer mid-season. They traded away Corey Kluber off-season. And it would not surprise me with the reaction and the fallout amongst the players if Clevenger and Plesac were dealt prior to the trade deadline, which now is, in a couple of weeks. So I was reading and following, and here is a possible landing spot. New York. The Yankees have not only pitching prospects, they have hitters. They've got Andujar, who just seems to be lost somewhere in New York. They've got King in the bullpen. They've got Schmidt on the farm. They've got J.A. Happ, who pitched a really good game last night. And there's something going on between J. Happ and Boone in New York. So it wouldn't surprise me to see the Yankees package up a deal which included J. Happ, which included a couple of young bats, maybe Mike Ford, maybe Miguel Andujar, and sent to Cleveland, and you see Clevenger as a Yankee. Now, I know that may sound like, where did that come from? Well, it makes perfect sense. First of all, have you been overwhelmed with starting pitching in New York not named Garrett Cole? Okay? And there is definitely a rift within the Cleveland team if Plesac and Clevenger come back. So what makes sense is a trade that benefits everybody. Now, would Cleveland be interested in having Clint Frazier come back? Remember, he was drafted by the Tribe, came up in their farm system, traded away to the Yankees a few years ago. He is scalding hot right now for the Yankees. But I don't know if the Yankees want to trade Frazier. It's almost like they finally give him a chance to play every day, and he is taking full advantage of it. But there are other players. Ford is a player. Andujar is a player. Michael King is a player. They've got Sessa in the bullpen. They've got some arms and they got some talent that they could send over to Cleveland in a trade that would make a lot of sense for both teams. It would calm the feelings of the Tribe. Now look, the Tribe, they had a great weekend. If you look at the standings this morning, which we're getting ready to do, and you see where Cleveland is in the standings, even though they've been without Plesac, even though they've been without Clevenger their last turn, they both skipped their last turn, Cleveland is only one game behind Minnesota. They sit at 13-9. The Minnesota Twins are 14-8. They're one game out. Right now, if the season ended, they would be a wild card winner. With all the turmoil that was created in the offseason, talking about possibly trading Frankie Lindor, and not doing it. And now you've got this situation. It just makes sense to me that Cleveland will look to shop both Plesac and Clevenger. And Durf's in the room on StreamYard. Durf, good morning. He's asking me a question about releasing Bichette or Albies. I'll get to that in just a moment. That'll be the next thing we pick up. How about that? But look for Cleveland to trade both pitchers. I'll look for the Yankees to get one, and who might get the other? Well, aren't the Braves a great choice? Or another choice, the Astros. The Braves, though, have young talent that they can also send back to Cleveland, as the Yankees do. So I'm looking for one of those guys to go to Atlanta, the other one to go to New York. I think that's going to be your trade, maybe not even waiting until the deadline. Maybe that happens this week. We shall see. So, over the weekend, I'll go ahead and start the injury report. Look, you talk about Bichette, Toronto shortstop extraordinaire. He was having just an absolutely incredible start to his season. Bo Bichette was hitting .361, or is hitting .361. He scored 11 runs, 5 homers, 13 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. Saturday felt something going on with his knee. He had an MRI yesterday. He has a sprained right knee, and the reports are out of Toronto that he could be out a month. A month. So what do you do with Bichette? Well, the obvious choice is if you can put him on an IL slot, you put him on your IL. But if he's going to be out for a month, that means mid-September. The baseball season ends the end of September. So you've only got him for 2 weeks, if he comes back at all. I think if there's someone out there that you can pick up to take his place, that you do it. I think you release him. And the same with Ozzie Albies. This is a short year. Look, not only are they going to be out with the injuries, they're going to be out of sync too. Timing takes a little bit of time to come back. We know that. We know the pitchers were ahead of the hitters at the beginning of the season. Happens every year. Hitters are now starting to catch up. But the long layoff for Bichette and Albies will mean that their timing has to be recreated, if you will, reinstituted. So we look at replacing these guys in fantasy. Now, there's the challenge. Because depending on how deep your league is, depends on who may be available. I want to offer you a few players this morning that may be middle infield eligible, ready to roll. And let's see what you think about my suggestions. Okay, let's start in the great state of D.C. with the Nationals. And we know over the weekend that Starlin Castro broke his wrist, probably out for the year, and they bring up a young kid by the name of Luis Garcia. That's right, Luis Garcia. And in his first game, he goes, "Good morning, Phil Chaplin. How are you doing, my brother?" They bring up Luis Garcia, and in his first game, he goes 2 for 5 with a double and a run scored. Now, Garcia has a plus hit tool. He's going to get the opportunity, he and Carter Kieboom. Both of those guys, I suggest, if they are available, take a look at them. There are other players as well, because on this same Nationals team, there's also Asdrubal Cabrera. Don't know about his availability, but certainly someone to take a look at. Other players, how about Nick Ahmed? He's a shortstop, hitting .233, not a great average, plays every day, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, he scored 13 runs, he's got 2 stolen bases. over his last 5 games, 21 at-bats, 7 hits. That's a .333 average with 6 RBIs. Ahmed will play every day. Again, if you're looking for a filler for a Bichette or an Albies, Ahmed is yet another option. I'm going to take you to Detroit. Now, this is a real dark horse, okay? But you know I love dark horses. Phil Chaplin, you know I love dark horses. So as we look at the lineup, if you will, for Detroit, they have a shortstop, okay? And now I'm not talking about Nico Goodrum, who just went out with an injury. I'm not talking about Candelaria, who just, I guess, became the first baseman, right? I mean, they're going to move him to first. He's going to play every day, it seems. I'm talking about a guy by the name of Willie Castro. I want you to keep your eye on him. Now, he's not off to a great start. He's hitting .286 on the year, 1 homer, 3 RBIs, but he has started the last 3 games for the Tigers. He can steal you some bases. He has a little bit of pop. He's a real dark horse. I looked this morning. He's only owned in 5% of all fantasy leagues, 0.5%, excuse me, 0.5% in ESPN leagues. Phil Chaplin, I'm headed to the Miami Marlins next. I want to talk about the Phillies and the Marlins back to back after I finish with the Tigers. So we're going to talk about looking at these players to take up the slack. Now, it's going to be, am I saying these guys are as good as Bichette? No. But looking at who can take their place is something to consider. Because, again, some fantasy playoff leagues will begin in a couple of weeks at the same time the trade deadline begins. Let's talk about those Marlins for a minute. Wow. How many of you guys thought, let's look at the standings. I always like looking at the standings. And as we get deep into the season, it's a really good time to do it. And as we look at the standings this morning in the National League East, atop the standings, the Miami Marlins, 9-6, only played 15 games, but they're tied with the Braves for first place, a .600 winning percentage. And if the season ends today, it doesn't, but if the season ends today, Miami's in the playoffs. What do we attribute that to? Well, several things. First of all, let's take a look at some of their hitters. Villar's not really been that great. 14 for 61. He's only hitting, .230? 1 homer, but he does have 6 stolen bases. But a key player in that lineup is Jesus Aguilar. Owned in probably less than 50% of fantasy leagues, Aguilar, as we looked this morning, is hitting .286 on the year, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, doesn't strike out a lot, has really gotten off to a great start for the Marlins. Now, the pitching has been the real reason, and there's optimism here. First of all, their ace, Sandy Alcantara, who's currently on the injured list, has been cleared for reinstatement and will begin working at the Marlins alternative site today. Remember, Alcantara was one of the Marlins who tested positive for COVID, pitched 1 game, July 24th against the Phillies at Philadelphia,